Reminded to not make audible noises. To what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Ask unanimous consent to speak to the House for 5 minutes to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, leaders in this Congress have hastily pushed through a bill with the direct intent of correcting a mistake that could have been prevented in the first place. Let me repeat that. A mistake that could have been prevented in the first place. We've all seen the devastation that occurs following congressional knee-jerk reactions, and I'm afraid that today's AIG bonus bill will not be an exception to that rule. I have serious constitutional concerns about our government targeting such a narrow group of citizens with a retroactive tax hike, regulating the pay of thousands of private citizens because of a mistake made by the leadership of this Congress starts us down a slippery constitutional slope. And what are our constitutional leaders planning to do with the taxes that they collect from this bill? It will probably all go back to AIG in their next bailout payment. My mom always taught me that two wrongs do not make a right. And this bill is no more than a legislative cover-up by the leadership of this Congress. It's time for this body to instead address the problem that got us here in the first place, the lack of transparency. Lack of transparency is the true perpetrator in this high crime against the taxpayers. Ultimately, the taxpayers are not only the defendant in this case, but also the jury. And I think the taxpayers must serve congressional leaders with a clear verdict. It's congressional leadership who relinquished their promises for a more transparent government and instead steamrolled the non-stimulus bill down our throats, bypassing the regular committee process and refusing input from the minority party. Why are my colleagues on the other side acting surprised to find that a provision was ripped out of this bill that would have prevented these bonuses in the first place? In fact, that was even introduced by a Democratic U.S. Senator. They finally made the 1,000-page bill public in the middle of the night and then steamroll it through Congress with only a few hours later, all without adequate public or congressional scrutiny. This is absolutely outrageous. The American people deserve better and must demand better. They say that making legislation is like making sausage. You don't want to see it. But I beg to differ, because these are trillion-dollar hot dogs that are being slammed and shoved down the throats of the taxpayers, and taxpayers have to swallow it. It's time for congressional leaders to let taxpayers into the sausage factory. It's time for taxpayers to see what goes on here in Congress and goes into the sausage and what's left out. Then and only then will we avoid coming back to fix mistakes that shouldn't have been made in the first place. We've seen bill after bill shoved down the taxpayers' throats. It's a steamroller of socialism that's being shoved down our throats, and it's going to strangle the American economy, and it's going to choke the American taxpayers. Taxpayers deserve better. Taxpayers have to demand better. Taxpayers are not being treated fairly. We've seen bill after bill that's going to hurt the economy. It's going to cost jobs. It's going to create a longer and a deeper recession, maybe even a depression. We've seen people on the other side blame President Bush, and they show righteous indignation, and it's totally misplaced, because in this last Congress, the 110th, now in the 111th, and with this administration, we see bill after bill that's going to hurt the economy, it's going to hurt the American taxpayer, it's going to cost jobs. It spends too much, it taxes too much, it borrows too much, and it's going to kill our economy. We've got to demand more and better from this leadership in this Congress. This steamroller of socialism is being driven by Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and this administration, and it must stop because it's going to destroy America economically. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time. The chair lays before the House